and welcome back to another episode of the Midlife Podcast, where we have curious conversations about what it means to walk the way of Jesus as we live out the midlife life in communion with God, in community with God's people, and committed to the cause of the kingdom. I'm Haley Gregory, and once again, I'm joined by the illustrious Gloria Kim.
I don't know if that was used.
Yes. And this is our final episode in our hospitality series. It's kind of sad. We've really enjoyed these conversations with different members of our community and different members of the Denver community to just talk a little bit about hospitality. And so we're going to finish off this time talking about something that's really important here in the LIFEGATE community, a value of intercultural hospitality. And so we're going to just chat a little bit about that. And so, Glo, I know you grew up as a missionary kid in the Philippines, and your parents went to the Philippines from Korea, and they're Korean. And so you grew up in this environment as Korean missionaries in the Philippines, and then the Lord providentially brought you to the States, and you went to Denver Seminary, and then you ended up here. And so it's this beautiful story, I think, of the way in which God has moved in your life. But that's a lot of different cultures that you've interacted with, whether it's Korean culture or Filipino culture here in America. And so can you share a little bit of your story of how hospitality has come to be a personal value for you, and what that has looked like in your life?
No, I love that question. As a very relational person, I think the older I get, I'm being more appreciative of my background. And as now being here in the West, I didn't really recognize the gift and the beauty of Asian hospitality, what I grew up with, what I was exposed to and taught back at home, because now being in a contrasting culture almost, I get to just see the highlights of it. And so I'm just grateful, as I'm walking through my journey of embracing, coming from multiple different backgrounds, right? I'm just really noticing the beauty of how the places that I come from are very relationally oriented, and how it has shaped me in valuing hospitality as a person I am today. And some of the few things is, I think, hearing my dad's story when he started missions, going out in the Philippines. He went out as a single man right after Bible college, and he was just passionate for mission. And so he will spend a good amount of years just learning the culture. So I think just even from that, I got to learn one aspect of hospitality is what it means to learn the language of the other people, who you want to interact with. And you're not going in with an agenda. You're not like, hey, I'm going to plant a church. Hey, I'm going to do this, that. He was just immersed in the life of the local people there. And people always just love sitting outside on the streets or whatever. And then they'll just invite whoever's passing by. It's my dad did a lot of going from house to house, inviting people to church. He planted a lot of church, one of earlier stages in his ministry. He went around different islands where there's no electricity or water access, and build a literally bamboo hut. And as soon as he put a roof on it with the local people, he called it a church, you know? What are the local people accustomed to? What's their lifestyle? And let's meet them. And even if we our understanding of church is we need a building, we need a sound system, all these things, no, that's where I come from. But these local people are exposed to something different. So let's learn it in their way and introduce the gospel in where they can meet the Lord through their cultural lens. So I think that was a very eye-opening thing. I every time I heard my dad share that story, and then my mom, she would host special dinners for I was part of praise and worship team. Obviously, growing as a PK, MK, you're like, we need a worship leader. I'm like, okay, I'll grab a guitar and start teaching myself, So like, invited all the praise and worship team, and every time she like set up dinner, she'll like think through every single detail. Like, okay, when people come in, they can put their shoes here, and then little bit of like napkin setup, or even if it's like just sparkling cider, she'll like pull out like wine glass, just for the entire experience. So from my mom's side of it, like I got to really learn how to be very detail oriented and like think through every step that people are taking in coming into the house and what's their full experiences. So like, and that sort of is now translating to what I get to do here at LifeGate, right? In a bigger scale, like what are people experiencing as they step in? So trying to think through the lenses of the guest, first-time visitors, like how can I think beyond myself, like I go a mile further and say like, what are the things they're noticing? What are the things that they would appreciate? The signs that they might appreciate, the directions, if people don't like ciders, like what other options can we put out? All these things, like I just saw my mom doing it growing up. So I just learned how to like place the table and then think through, like consider the other person.
Yeah. I love the idea that I love the idea of hospitality being a space where we're learners.
Wow.
That we don't ever fully arrive.
Yeah.
Right? I think sometimes when it comes to hosting and hospitality and the multi-million-dollar industry that is Martha Stewart and the Magnolia, which are all great things. We're not bemoaning those things. They have a place, right? But yet, I think sometimes people feel like they arrive in like being the most hospitable, that they've achieved being hospitable. And I think that hospitality is so much deeper than that, right? It's this constant learning of the people, and especially we talk about intercultural hospitality. I love the idea that your dad went in as a learner. Yeah. Right? He went in not to put his own assumptions on the people. Right. But instead to learn who they were and how they did hospitality. Right. And that was probably different than Korean culture and the way in which Korean culture does hospitality. Even for him, like even going into another Asian country, like there is difference, right? And so I think that's such a beautiful thing for us to think through, especially as it relates to intercultural hospitality. How do we take a posture as learners in that? I don't really have a question out of that. I think it's just more of a reflection. But I think that then you moved here to the States. How have you seen, like, how have you interacted with intercultural hospitality here? And like, what has that experience been like for you?
Yeah. Well, moving to the state as an international student, I was broke. And in ministry too, not that different. But I think it's been interesting being a foreigner in this land. I don't have this security and permanency here. Yeah. And so while being a foreigner and maybe a visitor, hopefully it's a resident someday, but I think I got to experience a different aspect of hospitality, of how it means to be a hospitable guest. I have not as abundant resources as much as somebody who has a house to host, or I used to live with my sister in a small apartment complex. Like, I'm not saying those are excuses not to, but I think I've learned to delight in becoming more of a hospitable person than focusing on the act of hospitality, that I need to host, that I need to cook, I need to do stuff. but naturally, like the Lord has created us in his image, and he is a hospitable God, and I enjoy connecting to my authentic being, which I love being hospitable. And so then how can I carry that wherever I go? Like even let's say picking up a friend from the airport, like how can I make that experience of picking up a friend from an airport, the drive, to be conversational and hopefully providing rest for that person, you know, providing something less to worry about and bringing a food while I pick them up, you know? The small things like that. Like, it has been interesting. I have not mastered it at all, but I think that's one different aspect of hospitality that I've gotten to touch base. Living out here as a single woman, like in a foreign country with no families out here in the States at all. Well, I have a younger sister out in California, but just
right, you don't get to see her very much.
I know. I'll be like, you stay, I'll come. Yeah, does that make sense?
I think we've touched a lot on that in this series, right? Of being a hospitable guest. That hospitality isn't based on whether or not you're the one doing the hosting, whatever that means, or the one opening your home. Like you can be hospitable in somebody else's space. And also hospitality isn't just an act of something. I love that you mentioned that. I think that came up in a variety of different conversations, but primarily in our conversation with Carrie, right? Of like, hospitality is something that we are. It's not something that we do.
Right.
And so I love that as we think about intercultural hospitality, because I think, especially in our American context, there's a lot of difference amongst people, right? Like we live in a society where we are not all one and the same. And so in that, we have different backgrounds and different ages and stages of life, different socioeconomic stages, right? Different professions, different ethnicities, different races, and different family histories. And all of that comes into how we interact with the world around us. And so when we become a person who is hospitable, we're able then to go into spaces and to bring our authentic selves, like Carrie talked about in her podcast, like to bring all of you into that space, and hopefully you can then bring space for other people to bring their authentic selves into that space. Do you want to share a little bit? You were talking a little bit before we started around these, like this idea of hot and cold cultures and some of these things that you've been thinking about as it relates to hospitality and the way in which we interact with each other across difference.
Yes. I came across this article that says the difference between hot climate versus cold climate cultures, and it was just fascinating. Like even with like Philippine is like on the equator.
Yeah, it's a hard word.
I was gonna say Ecuador.
It's on the Ecuador. Just kidding. It's not.
Like a lot of the culture have like in the Philippines, like we have after lunch you have this like nap time because of the climate. Like you are just more so like you lean more towards relational than task oriented because you can only do so much, and it leaves you to be interdependent of like, okay, I'm exhausted, it's so hot out there, I need a cold refreshment, or like I need a nap, or like whatever that is. Like just draws people to be like more dependent towards each other, and less of like I need to get this done today, you know, because there's so many things that is unreliable when it comes to weather. Half of the year in the Philippines is monsoon season, so like it's pouring rain, you cannot get constructions done outside or all these things. So it's fascinating. Like it does mention like how warmer culture are normally more relationally oriented, whereas like colder culture are more so task oriented, which makes sense if like I cannot remember, but it's interesting because like Korea falls under like the colder culture, but like Korea, China, maybe a little bit of Japanese culture too, but their collective culture doesn't necessarily come from rely on the weather as much as like the belief system, the religion. So like the background of Buddhism and Confucian, like their teachings were like honor your family. So it's very like family oriented in a very different way from the Philippines.
Yeah.
Philippines is like everybody is my family. I have 200 aunties and like uncles, you know, like passing by the street. I just met you last week. You're invited to my wedding. You know, like it's crazy. You just pull up a karaoke machine, you sing till 3 a.m. All your neighbors sing with you at 3 a.m. Whereas like Korea is like a little bit more private.
Yeah.
More like family centered, and you honor not just your immediate family nor extended family, but like your ancestors. Like what have they gone through for you to have your situation or your environment, your lifestyle right now? Like you are to honor the people who have come before us. So I think there's also that beauty of like hospitality doesn't necessarily apply to our current present moment. It has been like a thing that was passed down from generations above us or before us, and it will continue depending on how we act on it, how we believe and live it out to our upcoming future generation. Like I know I love talking about like our culture loves pointing out generational curses. We're like, this was wrong with what our ancestors did. Like this is what's wrong with our family, blah blah blah. But over the Old Testament, the Lord just pinpoints what are the generational blessings that He have given Abraham and like Jacob, and just it was highlighted in the Bible. And like, why are we so leaning towards the generational curses when the Lord is highlighting the blessings that He have given prior to them? So what a blessing it is. Like for me, I believe that this desire for hospitality, this desire for relationship doesn't exist as one single person, the person like as an individual, but it was a practice that was valued within the family. And I got to witness that like from hearing my dad's story, my grandparents' stories of how they were hospitable, and it has shaped me and formed me to be the person that I am today.
Yeah, and I think that that's so cool to think about, because I think that idea actually spans culture. The idea of what's the legacy, as one might say, of your family, right? Because like obviously Korean culture is much more collectivist. I love when you talk about that. The first question people ask each other in Korea is, have you eaten yet? It's not like, how are you? It's, have you eaten yet? And that just is like, it's so different than American culture in that sense, right? Or I should say, Western American culture. And so, but the idea that like your family and like where you come from helps influence, and like there are things that influence the way in which you operate and live your life is true for all cultures. And it might look different, it might operate different in different cultures, and it absolutely will. Like Korean culture is definitely different than German culture or South African culture or Bolivian culture, right? Like they're all different, but there's still that commonality, which I think is what the beauty of intercultural hospitality is it's not focusing, and we've talked a lot about this, it's not just focusing on the differences that separate you. It's focusing on the ways in which you are interconnected.
So like most common thing is like everybody loves food. That's what brings us together to the table, and like that common denominator kind of like brings us together and then allows us to connect, you know? So I think that's why like a food, some sort of like food like is such a big part of creating a hospitable space, but it is not the main point of the hospitality.
No, that's really good. And I think it gets to so many things, because the reality is that when you gather around a table around food, right, whether you're 85 or 5, it's a common space, right? It's
You delight on the food.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, some tables are hierarchical, but it's like there is commonality in the space. You're eating of the same food.
Right.
You're participating in the same environment, right? Yeah, let's talk a little bit about intergenerational, because I think that's such a beautiful part of being an intercultural church, is that it also spans generations.
Totally. Yeah.
How, I mean, you're a single woman here in this city. Like, how do you feel like that like plays out in your life, living as a single woman, striving to be hospitable in the ways in which you live? What does that look like as you interact with people of different ages and stages and different backgrounds from you?
Yeah. I think just like how my dad approached people in the Philippines, I often approach with, what is this person needing? So let's say somebody invites me over for dinner, like couple, family, or just like single friends, whatever. Like, I feel honored to be invited, and even like what's even considered for them to take time to invite me over, like cook and meal, and just wanting to connect. I really feel honored with that. But also like, okay, what are the things that they are curious about? What are the things that they're needing?
Yeah.
Are they needing somebody to talk to about their concerns, or are they just full of wisdom that they just have so much overflowing cup that they just want to pour into somebody? So like, I tend to just gaze what the other person is needing and desiring, and I love asking questions. I suck at answering questions, so I'd rather usually turn the table and like redirect the questions towards them. But everybody wants to be heard, everybody wants to be seen, and everybody wants to be known. Like, yes, they're the one who set the table. What can I bring to the table? If they didn't ask me to bring a side or a dessert, I can still bring to the table. Like, I want to make them feel seen and known by recognizing what their needs are. And you remember how Lois mentioned, like, going into a space with prayer, like covering it. So like, Lord, what are you speaking into my heart? Like, are they needing somebody to talk to about whether that's parenthood, like how this season has been hard, or am I supposed to be receiving from them? You know? So whatever that looks like, I'm gonna open it to the Lord's hand, and then I will just show up in ways.
Yeah, I think that, I also think that hospitality is both, right? And I think it should always be both, especially as somebody who regularly hosts in my home. I find that to be true of when I go into situations assuming that I'm just going to receive or I'm just going to give out of it. Like, usually I come out disappointed, right? Usually I come out being like, well, I didn't get what I thought I was going to get, or I didn't get to give what I thought I was going to give. Whereas I think I love the way that you just shared that, like kind of an open-handedness of like, okay, Lord, like guide and direct where you want this to go. Help me to be a person of hospitality, regardless of whether this goes in a direction that I want it to go, right? It's almost like a laying down of our own preferences, which I think is really what intercultural hospitality is. It's laying down our own preferences. It's sitting around a table with friends and eating Korean stew. What's that stew called that we ate that one time?
Oh, budae-jjigae, army stew.
Budae-jjigae. And me having no idea, right? Like, I had no idea what I was walking into, but it was so beautiful because I got to learn a little bit more about Korean culture and what that was like. And it was a handful of friends, right? And I had been more exposed than one of the other individuals there to different cultures. And for him to get to press into that, which is something that he probably hasn't experienced in a lot of ways. But to get to sit with people around a table and to just engage in that and to not necessarily think that you have to get something out of it, but instead to just be present and allow what the Lord wants to do through it, right?
And like, to further answer your question, like, yes, I might not have like the abundance of resources, right? Housing space, like, I mean, nobody has time these days, but like, I got to I think as a single person, well, one thing that I am blessed with this season in this singleness is like I do have time and capacity that I don't have to consider other person's time and schedule, whatnot. So I have more availability and flexibility to show up to people's places and help their desire for host may come through. So I will come in as a support role, like, oh, Brian and Erin and Hong and Holly, they wanted to host a soup night. Let's make this Korean stew. I can give you all the list of things. So like they got all the lists. Did I get it? I can't remember. But like
I think it was combined.
Okay. So we got the stuff, but they provided the space, and I got to cook with them, and like it was just fun that we don't have to do this alone. I can still show up as a support role no matter whatever need is. And we all got to try this delicious stew.
It was delicious.
We all got like knocked out afterwards. Trust me, I didn't put MSG, but like it was high sodium. But yeah, I think that's the beauty of it. Like as a single person, I do have more capacity than married people or people with family, and so then I can be creative in helping other people's desire to host may come true. At the same time, I enjoy hosting as well.
Yeah. I love the partnership in that too. I think that that's a beautiful thing as we talk about intercultural, but also just hospitality in general, of that there can be partnership in your hospitality. It doesn't have to be all just one or two people, whether you're a married couple. Like invite a single friend into that and ask them to host with you.
Right.
Ask another married couple to host with you, which I mean, we did that often. We had regular Sabbath dinners that we would host with another couple in our neighborhood. But there's just such a beauty when we get to like combine our stories together, right? And I think that that's, at the end of the day, hospitality is setting this table for story, right? It's creating space where everyone's story can and should be heard,
right?
Where it's not one person dominating a space, but instead everyone feeling seen and everyone feeling like they're known, and that they can belong in that space, which I think is really powerful when we get to do that across differences too. When we can sit at a table coming from a born and raised Coloradan and somebody who immigrated here from the Philippines, right, and was a third culture kid even there, right, that we can sit across a table and we can laugh and we can share stories and we can engage in communion with one another and communion with God, even though our lives are different and our backgrounds are different, and our family situations where you have no family here and my entire family lives here is different, right? And I think that there's such richness in that when we can engage in that and not be afraid of it.
Yeah. And so the beauty of it is like, well, I have a couple stories. First of all, when we had a power outage, because of our pre-existing relationship, I am more easy or more prone to be asking, hey, can I show up to your place? Because it's just a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Whereas like here, it could be like, a lot of people think that I don't want to burden anybody. I'm just going to like, book myself a hotel room, whatever.
Right, yeah.
Like,
or I'll tough it out or whatever,
Yeah, which I tried toughing it out.
You did. For too long, you did.
But then like, I was just like, hey, can I come shower at your place, you know?
Yeah.
So I can bring that cultural side of me. It's like, it's easier for me to ask.
Yeah.
You can say no, but like, I know that you love just having people around and like making them feel comfortable. So like that worked out too. But also like when I first moved out to the States, we lived with this beautiful host family. First of all, we arrived like 6 months earlier to what we were talking about. Is all this visa processing. The Lord just moved. We ended up coming to America way earlier than what we talked about. So we just show up to their door. I was like, hi, we're Gloria and Del and you're from the Philippines. They were like, what? I didn't check my email that you guys were flying out here. So I think when I came to the States, knowing that time is such a high value here, and somebody gives you time, that means so much more than whereas like maybe back in the day, finance could be a little bit more high value, or lack of resource, or obviously relationship is very high value. So depending on the culture, what people are offering not necessarily might be your value.
Yes.
But you have to see it through their lens. And
yes.
Like our host family, the sweetest thing. We arrive, we have nothing. We have no mattress, whatever. You know, like we just slept. The next morning we wake up. Like they left breakfast burrito, a banana, and like left a note like, you guys just got here. Like I'm pretty sure you guys don't have any food, so here's some breakfast. I'll be home this time. If you need a ride to the grocery store, let me know. I can drive you. So like that spoke louder than anything else.
100%.
Like they were like, excuse our toys. I mean, like they had 4 kids under 10 years old. Obviously, of course, they'll have like everything around. But I'm like, that didn't really matter. That didn't speak about hospitality. It was like, you guys' times are valuable here. And you are willing to sacrifice that by like driving me to school, driving me to grocery stores, like driving me to the bank, which, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, I love that. And I think that's a great way for us to end, because I do think that it is true. That part of, and it comes back to how we started, that intercultural hospitality is about learning. It's about being aware of the ways in which other cultures operate, what's important to them, what's valuable to them, and how we as an individual can then interact with that. And it might feel uncomfortable at times, and often it will feel uncomfortable at first.
Unfamiliar.
But then there's this beauty that comes when we're able to see across that and to like engage across that, and to understand that what is valuable in one culture and what is valuable in another are both valuable.
Yeah.
One is not more important than the other.
Right.
So yeah, thanks, Glo, so much for all your wisdom. No, it's so fun to get to hear your wisdom, especially because you oversee the hospitality ministry here. And so thank you for your commitment to serving this community and hospitality, and continuing to grow our desire to love and care for anyone and everyone who walks through these doors. So you are so valued here in this community. So thanks for being here and for engaging in this series.
I really feel honored to be a part of this house, and even just given this space to explore and express biblical hospitality in such beautiful ways. I have a great team, like people who believe in me, like you, you know. I feel very privileged. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in. This was our last episode of the hospitality series on the Made Live podcast. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a series starting on presence. So we'll see you then. Thanks for joining us.